And we are live, and we also have Tyler just joining the meeting room right now. So let me just add him in. How do I do this? Tyler. Okay, we've got Tyler. Great, perfect. So I'll just give a quick introduction whilst Tyler syncs up. So welcome everybody to episode 11 of Shifty Perspective. This time we have Nick and Tyler, who are the directors, producers, cameramen, everything. They made a fantastic film, a documentary called DOSED. If you haven't seen it, then you definitely should check it out. And even so, this should be an interesting conversation because this is really, really eye-opening, this documentary. So, hey, can I hear you both? I've obviously spoke to Nick. Tyler, we got audio?
Can you hear me? How are you?
Loud and clear. I'm doing great. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, doing really well.
And you, Nick, you guys both in the same area? You're both in Canada right now?
We're both in the same city in
Nice.
very, very rainy Vancouver in Canada on
Beautiful
our national
British
holiday.
Columbia, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it's Canada Day today.
It's Canada Day, but nobody's going to be hitting the beach because it is rainy.
Mm-hmm. I see. My girlfriend's actually Canadian, and I haven't wished her a happy Canada Day, so I probably should. You reminded me of this.
Smart.
Yeah. So your film, it's been quite a journey for you guys, right? I mean, when did all this start? Because it's already released, we're now in the, this is a popular award-winning documentary. When did you start this journey?
Yeah, the journey started in sort of middle to late 2017. And It began with just like discussions about, like doing a trip with mushrooms. And some friends of mine convinced me to try mushrooms for the first time in my life.
Oh, wow.
And I found that instead of like sort of all the scary, stereotypical stuff that you hear, which I was very worried about, and that's what kept me away from psychedelics my whole life, that it was actually a really delightful experience. And also then the next day, I didn't feel hungover as you would if you're drinking with your friends. I felt really good. And then a few days later, I saw an article on the internet, and it was talking about microdosing and how that can help with depression and make people feel better. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because like I felt pretty good after doing mushrooms in general, like very different than partying with alcohol, as I said.
Yeah.
And then it was a few days after that coincidentally Adrienne texted me from a very low place. She had been struggling with severe depression, anxiety, and addiction issues for probably about 20 years. And I asked her if she'd ever tried psychedelics. And that sort of spurred our, journey into the world of psychedelics, where Adrienne decided that she would like to try magic mushrooms to see if it would help her, because she was in a very destructive pattern using street drugs that are very dangerous, illegal. There's fentanyl in it, and there's risk of overdose all the time. That's kind of how it all started for us.
And how did you know her? Have you known her for a long time then?
Probably about 7 or 8 years now. Just known her for a while, been friends. And since this journey, I'd say like me and Nick and Adrienne, we've become real close as far as like going through that whole process together now for, been several months of psychedelics back then. And then with like integration, and, it's just like, there's a movie being made about everybody's life, and we're all involved. And, it's an interesting experience for sure.
It was heavy, to be honest. Really, really, really heavy. I mean, honestly, really emotional. So I can only imagine how that felt to actually go through that as a process with her.
Well, there was so much that you didn't even see, of course, because there was 400 hours of footage taking place over an extremely long period of time. What you didn't see was like all the nights that Tyler and I were up like late, like worrying, trying to figure out how to make it all work and how to line everything up, because unfortunately these modalities that Adrienne participated in for her healing are not legally and wildly and readily available. And so instead of just having some clear help from institutions and governments on how to get the help she needs, it was sort of like finding a needle in the haystack, and also trying things that we weren't sure of because they're not like institutionalized.
How did you, like, obviously you had your first experience with psychedelics, so you weren't that kind of into the whole psychedelic scene. How did you guys go about actually like researching and going down this path? Because for someone who's not done it, it must be quite a challenge for both of you.
Yeah. Well, I think as we've learned, this also exists in a lot of cities around the world, but in Vancouver in particular, there's actually a strong psychedelic community on the underground. So we were lucky in that sense. And, one of the first people that I remember speaking with, and I found him through searching around and finding, he was on a podcast, it was James Gesso, and he has his own podcast as well. And he, just gave us enough information to sort of help set us out on, I guess, a positive and careful and safe trajectory.
Cool.
And then he gave recommendations of people to speak with. And then from there, each person, they knew other people to speak with. And we were trying to kind of, get as much information as we can to interview people about this topic. And as Nick said, we had 400 hours. We interviewed so many people, and in the end, the people that made it into the film almost exclusively like worked directly with Adrienne or were closely tied, like really closely tied to the process. But yeah, that's kind of how it went. You just gotta like tap into the underground community. And once you're there, these people know a lot. They're very experienced. They've been working with, psychedelics therapeutically for a long time, and they've been helping a lot of people. And another fortunate thing is like we found a few of them that were willing to work with us, and specifically with Adrienne, and then also be a part of the documentary that we had already begun filming, which really at the end of the day, the reason that Nick and I did it, I mean, Nick and I were talking about doing a different documentary idea. And then when the whole psychedelic thing happened, we just threw that idea in. And then when Adrienne was like, well, I'd like to try magic mushrooms, it was kind of like, oh, like, should we film this? Maybe it could be helpful for people if it works. Mm-hmm. And he said, sure. And obviously we had more conversation about that and how that would look. And just the main thing there was making sure that the primary goal was her recovery and not just making a film. And because of that, there were many times throughout that we actually almost stopped filming because it wasn't an easy journey, and recovery for people in many cases is not easy, and filming can get in the way. It can be distracting. So this goes back to what Nick was saying about there's many long nights and sort of stressful conversations about like what is the best way to do things. And thankfully Adrienne was courageous, and even when we stopped filming for a bit and just kind of like chill out for a while, and then we'd get back to things, and she wanted to obviously like complete the journey for herself, and then also again, like if it worked, knowing that there would be an important message just to show people that this is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in a very raw and emotional way.
I loved the connection that you guys had during the filming. Obviously you were like out with the camera most of the time, but there were some interactions, and you could just see how really raw it was, and feeling like how she must have felt having the cameras there on her the whole time. I was very sympathetic to her pain, really, and I thought that I assumed that you guys must have had a good relationship, because if you were just, say, some random documentary makers that I didn't know her, and you were just following her around all the time, and it probably was invasive anyway, but it could have been even more invasive and really not actually had probably a detrimental effect. But I imagine because you guys had a close relationship with her, that really, it worked.
Yeah, I'd say so. And, definitely working the camera, I felt like, a little uncomfortable sometimes when she's going through these moments, and I've got this camera just like right in her face, right? Certainly it was prudent and like necessary for us to take a step back, to check in with her all the time. Are you okay to continue? Do you need space? Do you need to be alone? And certainly, like, as you saw in the film, on the first moment when she takes mushrooms, it's not until we leave, like, with the cameras, that she sort of has her breakthrough, and then tells us about it when we come back. So you do need a little bit of space away from the machines, I think, in order to have a proper psychedelic experience.
Are you, Nick, have you experienced mushrooms and psychedelics before as well?
Yeah, so I like, I had went to a party and I had taken mushrooms before. And I had, all my friends are kind of laughing and talking about these trippy things that they're seeing. And I was kind of sort of there on the surface, but I was like going inward a little bit. And I was thinking, like, what do I want to do in the next 5 years of my life? What do I want to do in the next 10 years? Do I want to be in such and such a relationship? Do I want to, do I like such and such friend group? Like, these sorts of important things, right? Do I work out enough, right? It's like Paul Stamets says in our film, that they make you want to be a better person. These psychedelic experiences, they make you just seek to be better than you were before. And so those were the kind of thoughts that I was having in my mind. So when this like explosion of media about the benefits of psychedelics for therapeutic purposes started to come out, and I started to catch wind of it like everyone else was, I'd never heard of that before. I didn't know about the long history.
You thought of just recreational use. That was all you did.
Yeah, I didn't know about it, but I thought like, oh, that makes sense, because I remembered that experience. And now subsequent to this filming, I've done big doses of mushrooms. I did a 9-gram dose. I did a 6-gram dose. And, personally for me, although, we always say, like, we don't recommend necessarily that someone's going to do this by themselves, right? I did do that. And for me, it was a very beneficial sort of part of working through like a personal issue that I had. So I'm definitely a supporter of become an accidental advocate for psychedelics and what they can do to bring out the best out of people if they're used properly and safely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that it's documentaries like this which is really important to bring attention to the positive aspects and the potential, because now, and with things like that, it brings it to the masses, and then that gives more attention, which in turn will eventually, I hope, result in more research being done into actually proving that there are benefits.
I mean, and we know anecdotally that there are, and we also know from all of this research that's been done by John Hopkins and Imperial College London and places like that. We know that they're showing this great efficacy for the benefits for like treatment-resistant depression, end-of-life anxiety, things like that. And also, I don't personally even I don't identify as depressed or having a history of depression or anxiety or anything like that. And I found it to be extremely beneficial for my own life. So I think we can't forget that people that maybe feel well generally can feel better with using these medicines.
Yeah, definitely. Were there any points when you guys were making it that she really wanted to back out of it, or, or was it more because you said before that there were parts where you thought maybe we shouldn't be doing this now? Yeah, did it happen with her?
Yeah, I don't know if she wanted to like back out necessarily, but on the journey, I think there were a couple hospital visits, but there was one in particular that's in the documentary, and just like it was just like a challenging time. And it seemed like at that point that, it could have been the end of the journey with psychedelics. So you know, from a filmmaking perspective and trying to make a documentary that would be helpful for people, you know, we're kind of like, well, if that's the end of it, then like it still helped. It still got her like way, way lower on opioids, like towards getting off of them. But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't complete in the sense. And maybe like in a certain sense, like the journey's never complete with sobriety and recovery and mental health. You know, it's an ongoing process that involves a lot more than psychedelics. You know, you need good, positive, you know, like hobbies and activities and community and all of those things. But like that was the moment I would say that we really thought that it might have been done, and we just didn't film for about a week. We obviously like stayed in touch, but you know, she wasn't doing any psychedelics or anything like that. It was just time to just chill out and see like what is going to happen. And then all of a sudden it was like one day, just like she's going back to do the follow-up treatment to finish the journey in a sense, like for herself. And she welcomed, you know, the cameras back with open arms to ensure that, you know, like the documentation is also there. Yes, if that makes sense. So it's tricky. I mean, when you're dealing with somebody's life and personal, you know, very raw personal journey, I think it's just like, what's the way to put it? I guess like the long and short of it is not recommended, I guess, right? Like it's not typically something that people want to go through. We had a lot of discussions about it though. And in the end, you know, we think that Adrienne is very courageous for letting the world see her journey. And it's one person's journey. Everybody's journey is going to be different. And, you know, and hopefully in some ways other people's journeys will be easier because they'll sort of see what Adrienne went through. They'll see some of the potential challenges, and, you know, like when you move forward and, you know, with the goal of recovery, again, as I said, it's about that integration before and after. The more of that you do, the better and the easier the psychedelics themselves will be.
Were you helping with the other aspects? So finding, you know, making sure that there was therapy or people to speak to and a support network outside of the psychedelics themselves, or was that her doing mainly?
She was doing that. Yeah, she's obviously like very smart and capable. So she was doing that. She was doing like float tank, sensory deprivation therapy. She's doing some yoga and a few other things, but it came down to the most simple things. Like when she was in active addiction and using, you know, she'd make plans with her friends or family, and then she'd always cancel the plans. And this was a consistent theme. Like she literally said she would always cancel the plan. So she'd have something that's supposed to happen and then figure out an excuse that she didn't have to go. And then obviously she'd probably just, you know, use and or just be depressed. And after the first mushroom trip, that started to change immediately. And so
that was the really interesting thing about this, is that you know, for her, mushrooms gave her this sort of initiative, like it was a catalyst for her to have the energy to start tackling the problem of how is she gonna like sort of overcome these obstacles in her life. But she still had the opioid addiction. She was still physically dependent on using opioids every day. And so, you know, she's on methadone, which is the, you know, country sponsored opiate replacement therapy program. You have to go to the pharmacy every day and you have to get your opioids, and they make you feel sick and nauseous and stuff like that, right? And tired and just like generally crummy. And then as well, on top of that, you know, there's the need to take actual like heroin in order to, you know, sort of
to feel normal, really
feel the normal, and also mask the pain of whatever she was going through. And so it was more simple. It was more difficult, I should say, than just being able to take a dose of mushrooms. Tyler was saying earlier, oh, maybe some people will have an easier journey than her. Like, yeah, actually, you hear all the time, and we talk to people all the time that, just maybe one dose of mushrooms is something that really changed their life for the better, and they maybe didn't even need another one. Or maybe some people need one every once in a while, like once a year, then you kind of a pick-me-up type thing. I know people that microdosed once and stopped being suicidal, right? But
got to rewire on your pathways, right? And everyone's
sure.
wiring is completely different. So
yeah, and like this journey that Adrienne took was much more complicated because of many years of opioid addiction. She was on a lot of heroin, like a lot.
I can't remember exactly in the film, but at some point I remember you guys mentioned that it was enough to kill a few people, like what her dose was.
Well, in a line that didn't end up in the film, Gabor Mate said that she was on enough to kill a horse, which is true.
Oh, wow. That's and to go from that to especially if you've been doing that for so long. I mean, any habit is difficult to break, but when it's such a consuming habit that dictates your whole life, I mean, yeah, it must be horrendous. And then you've got to relearn everything, all of the relationships and all of everything that's changed due to the effects of the drug addiction. So then kind of like relearn all of those again
Yeah. People burn bridges, unfortunately, when they're addicted to drugs and they don't have a coping mechanism of how to deal with everyday situations in life without the drugs. And so when you take the drugs away, all of those things need to be repaired.
Yeah. When you guys made this, had you had any experience making documentaries before, or were you just like in at the deep end?
I made a few documentaries and worked on a few others that didn't really make it to a completed state, I guess.
Okay.
And Nick?
Yeah, no, I'd done some videography and some, working on some other creative projects, and was just like sort of in the process of changing my life towards moving into documentaries specifically. And Tyler, I've known Tyler for 10 years or like maybe 12 years now. He was on my ex-wife's softball team, and we never imagined that we'd make a film together. But
that's how you met?
Yeah. And at a certain point, he was just asking me like, what was I doing today? And I said, I don't want to do this social thing he invited me to. Like, I'm busy. Like, I want to make a movie, right? And he's like, well, okay, well, let's talk.
That's
careful what you ask for. 3 years of working, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Every time I do a documentary, I say that I'm not going to do another one.
Yeah.
Because it's just totally ridiculous and in many different ways, but challenging in itself. And this one was extremely time consuming and challenging. It overtook like my and Nick's life completely.
I can only imagine.
The editing process, going through the footage and putting the story together, and it was like we were editing while it was almost in a way it was still happening. Like it's like we still didn't know how it was going to end in a sense. But yeah, there's an update in the film. I don't know if we're getting into the spoiler alerts, but it is what it is. Cover your ears if you're watching, but spoiler alert in the film is how Adrienne is doing. How she's doing today is, she's almost 2.5 years sober now. She's doing very well, and, working, volunteering, she's helping people in this space as well. She's looking at going back to school to, get her master's in counseling or psychology. I can't remember. And, that would like sort of set up her to be able to help on like the legal side of things.
Okay.
Because in Canada, the US, and other places around the world, like there's FDA trials ongoing for
psilocybin, right? With at the moment.
Psilocybin is, I think they got fast tracked to like phase 3, so that potentially could be legal for therapeutic use in the next year or two, maybe 2 or 3 years. And MDMA is probably going to be legal for therapeutic use before that. And they use MDMA for treating PTSD, and
Yes.
with extremely good results. And that's through MAPS and MAPS Canada, that one.
There's quite a large movement for it, you know, I'm in the Netherlands right now, and
Yeah.
I think there's a large movement for, at least for the therapeutic use, and possibly, you know, a change in the law regarding these important substances, these compounds. That I've speak to a lot of people who work in this, and it's really difficult because they are guys who essentially are breaking the law every day to help people. Like, there are psychologists and psychoanalysts and therapists who are risking their licenses, risking going to jail to help people, because they believe, or they know, that this is way more productive and way more beneficial than, you know, the traditional way of dealing with things.
Well,
yeah, they say that like one dose of magic mushrooms with you know, the right support and the right mindset going in, and you know, the right dose is equal to about 10 or 20 years of talk therapy.
that's what I was going to say. So it's like, imagine if you're a therapist or a counselor and you're just like, oh, I just want to use the better tool in conjunction with the psychotherapy, right? To be very, you know, especially when people are suffering and they could die. Like Adrienne was taking fentanyl-laced heroin every day. She could have an overdose any day. And so imagine knowing that this is possible, this substance is possible, but like, oh, can't give it to her because it's illegal for some reason.
It's absolutely absurd, really.
The reason is so funny. It's like, who makes the rules? It's like, is it just a bunch of old people that just they just think like, you know, people are partying on these drugs. They're like wrapped up in the war on drugs and the stigma, and you know, quite frankly, a lot of them are probably getting political contributions and stuff like that from pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
And pharmaceutical medication generally makes a lot of money because people have to use it for years and years, if not the rest of their life. And unfortunately, as we've seen with mental health issues getting worse, not better, the pharmaceutical medications for most people don't work well. For those who do, that's great. And so that should be an option, as should abstinence only, like AA and other groups like that. But like adding in the psychedelics, I just can't believe that it hasn't happened yet, and how long it takes to change, you know, like the mind of people. And it seems like there's a bit of corruption involved that
for sure. I've been in and out of meetings actually today and the past few days with various people who have been discussing this, and not even just for the psychedelics, but around pharmaceuticals in general. And one of the things I was told that it's very difficult to patent certain compounds. So there's not really an interest unless they can get a direct patent on, for example, you know, they can't patent or patent. I'm not sure how you guys say it.
Patent, yes, I understand.
They can't get a patent on psilocybin, so there's no real interest in it, and they want to get that on certain molecules. And if those molecules are already, you know, established or banned, and there's no way around that, then there's not really much financial incentive. And then also there's a whole treatment, you know, continuous treatment rather than cure. So, you know, it's better to, you know, you make a lot more money having somebody on pills that they take for the rest of their life than giving somebody something that possibly you give them once along with therapy and then they never take it again.
Well, there are companies trying to patent psilocybin, the synthesized molecule, in conjunction with a certain type of therapy. So it's like, you know, this molecule with this therapy for this problem, like depression or whatever. And so there's like kind of a bit of an uproar right now amongst the different companies that are creating synthesized psilocybin for future use when it becomes legal.
Yeah.
There's sort of like a bit of a controversy there about whether or not that will be allowed legally or not. It's quite interesting how everything's sort of shaking up as we move towards, I think, eventual legalization. I think it's going to happen, and then it's just a matter of how it happens that we'll have to be keeping an eye on.
Have you found that since making the documentary, you are more involved, like in the psychedelics movement as such?
I mean, from nothing at all to quite involved for sure. Yeah. We've got some things that we're working on.
Okay.
I was actually speaking at City Hall. Let's see, I guess it would have been late last year. They were talking about actually increasing policing and enforcement of, possession and I guess selling of magic mushrooms. So psilocybin.
Yeah.
And of course, when we in the community heard about this, a bunch of us went to City Hall. I think there was about 20, 25 people speaking about why they shouldn't do that. And it was literally every single person that spoke was against the motion to increase policing. And of course, they were in favor of decriminalizing all drugs, actual legal therapeutic use. And there were people that had personal stories about how magic mushrooms were the only thing that helped them, if not cure, at least really reduce the severity of cluster headaches, or suicide headaches, as they're called. So this is a condition where that happens periodically for people, and like magic mushrooms is the only thing that would help them. So why should they have to worry about going to jail because they don't want to have this headache that just like is ruining their life periodically for many days, excruciating pain, and all sorts of other examples as well. And of course, I was up there just mentioning how magic mushrooms and helped Adrienne, and that we documented the whole thing. And then actually a couple of city councilors came to one of our screenings in Vancouver. I'd say a few weeks after that.
Brilliant.
And so that was kind of interesting and cool. So they're interested. There's just one person there that was trying to put this through, but it's just because she didn't like the guy that puts on 420 in Vancouver. They're always butting heads over cannabis law for years. So she was trying to punish him, I think, and everybody else inadvertently.
Were there police
and I don't think you
involved, or?
can tell that story. Sorry for interrupting,
Okay.
but I don't think you can tell that story without. We just have to share that the counselor that had initiated this motion to try to do this had cited all sorts of crazy like stats, but they were like not even real. It was like crazy assertions like that people were injecting psilocybin into their veins and stuff like that.
God.
And anybody who knows anything about the topic or about is like, nobody's doing that at all. So where's this coming from? It was bizarre. It was like bizarre world.
It was really weird. Huge waste of everybody's time. But we won that little motion. It did not go through. So
Brilliant.
yeah, so we're at it now for sure, big time. We are also working on a project where, hopefully in the near future, like when it's legally allowed, there'll be like, clinics where people can go and have these experience in a controlled environment. So Nick and I are working with that. We're going to have like, updates about that on our website, dosedmovie.com, periodically as things start to unfold. Yeah.
At this, the thing with the councillors, were there members of the police force there? Did you get a chance to speak to them and find out what they think?
I can't remember if there was any police officers there. I mean, there's definitely like police security, but they weren't speaking, were they, Nick?
No, I don't recall that there were police officers there, no.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've started to see, there's quite a few movements appearing with younger police officers who are kind of moving to promote the legalization, decriminalization of drugs.
We had a screening in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is in Canada, and there was actually like an active police officer speaking on the panel after the screening.
Brilliant.
And so somebody approached us and said, does this person, would this person be a good fit? And I was thinking, like, I don't know. Does he know what the movie's about? Like, is it illegal drugs? What is he going to say about this? He's going
to arrest you guys after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They said, no, he's cool. He's cool. He agrees with these ideas. So yeah, I guess some police officers for sure are aware of, the fact that this is out there as a solution.
Policing mental health issues is a really, really dumb approach.
Yes.
It is a waste of time and money. You're just punishing people in a weird way.
You're punishing both people as well. The police
need the most help. Yeah, sure. And like, it's just a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, police have so many other important issues, that really are actual police matters. And then if you're going and like shaking someone down for a bag of mushrooms, maybe they just picked them too in the wild, right? Like things grow everywhere. Of course, be careful. There are the dangerous lookalike mushrooms. So, we've never actually picked them ourselves personally. We tried it once, thought we found a bunch, did a spore print. It came out the wrong color. We're like, oh, this is actually the poisonous lookalike. And so we just chucked them all.
Hundreds and hundreds of mushrooms just like chucked into the bush.
we thought we found this. Yeah, it was really funny. It was so satisfying to be like, oh, this is so nice. You're picking them from the ground. And then it's like, that's not the one. It's like not worth even risking it.
No, you could eat one and it could be deadly, right? If it's a really wrong one.
Destroy your liver and stuff. That's actually the number one danger with magic mushrooms. They're considered to be the safest of all drugs.
Yes.
With alcohol being the most dangerous by far, and then things like heroin, cocaine, crack, and all those other ones, and then it's like there's cannabis and LSD, and then mushrooms mushrooms at the very bottom are the safest. But one of the biggest dangers of them is just if you go and try to pick them and you pick the wrong one, and then you get poisoned.
I think Professor Nutt from Imperial said that, one of the things that got him fired from the government panel, I'm not sure if you have heard of his story.
I'm somewhat familiar with that. I know that
he was appointed as the head of, I think it's the Misuse of Drugs Council, which it was the official advisory board for the UK to advise the government on drugs law and on changes to the drugs law. So he didn't just say things should be legalized, this should be this. He would do studies into things and come back, this is really dangerous, this is not. And then when he came back to them and said, well, actually, I've discovered that magic mushrooms and ecstasy or MDMA is actually safer than horse riding. That was a comparison that he made. You're more likely to die in a horse riding accident than you are taking mushrooms and ecstasy. And then the thing of the mushrooms is from the wrong picking even. So that was what makes it dangerous. But that got him fired. So even though he was hired to give them advice and not be politically biased, they still fired him for that because it didn't fit their political agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the problem, these political agendas. The war on drugs is the biggest sort of failure ever. The amount of money that goes into that, and like everybody can get drugs anywhere in the world, any kind, pretty much.
Yep.
All over, and they're all illegal, and it doesn't make any difference really. So if they were legalized and controlled by the government, there'd be less overdoses from sort of the mystery drugs when you're talking about the hard drugs like cocaine and heroin, for example. People in Vancouver and cities around North America and probably Europe, I'm not sure, you'd have to tell me, but they're dying from fentanyl overdoses all the time. And the cost of just fighting the opioid crisis in the United States each year is $500 billion. So if the government wanted to save money and just do some policy change, they could, even if they just took a small percentage of that and like kick-started a fast-tracked, some more clinical trials, like fast-track them, like for example, for Ibogaine. Yes. And which is one of the best kinds of psychedelics for opioid addiction. But anyway, the long and short of it is they need to just reallocate resources. It's a mental health issue. You know, it's not helping somebody, a drug addict, to like throw them in jail or any kind of rehab without better care. And obviously the psychedelic experiences can shift somebody's perspective completely towards a positive path instead of a negative, destructive path. And if people don't know already, like, psychedelics are not addictive. So people might do them once in a while, but really you could do them once or twice, and that could be enough for your entire life. And you know, you could do it maybe once every few months or once every year, just depending on exactly what you're going through. And like that should be celebrated compared to, for example, using heroin every single day, or being on antidepressants,
or getting drunk every day.
Yeah. Or what?
Or getting drunk.
Yeah, I mean, alcoholism is huge, and of course that's legal. So that's one that is legal, and it is the most destructive. So go figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's interesting.
I think you said something a few minutes ago about older people in power, and I think that is very true. That there's a generation. Well, we've got a few generations that are misinformed because they're you know, even when I was in school, and I'm sure like when you guys were in school, like, you know, that drug education was really misleading and was fear-based.
Cracking an egg into a frying pan. It's like, did you see that one? We had this one where they'd say, this is your brain, and they hold up an egg, and then they'd crack it into a frying pan, and they say, this is your brain on drugs. That was like a big scare. And then there's all with psychedelics specifically, there's all the sort of urban myths of like, oh, they're going to make you go crazy.
Jump out of a window. Everyone knows somebody who jumped out of a window because they thought they could fly.
Right. Somebody said something. I don't know if it was one of the guys. I don't want to. It was somebody like Rick Doblin when we were talking, but I don't think it was Rick. But somebody like that. They said, why would you, if you think you could fly, why would you jump out of a window? Why wouldn't you just start from the ground?
Exactly.
Just if you can fly from the ground, it's like, oh, you can't. But I mean, psychedelics aren't for everybody.
No.
You know, so people definitely need to be careful and respect them. And you know, if there's certain mental illness that run in your family, there's cautionary tales and you know, but it's all very understudied as well. And certain diagnoses often are like misdiagnoses from doctors who have said somebody's, for example, bipolar, give them medication, but they never were bipolar. They were just going through something in their life, and instead of dealing with it, they started getting medicated, and that can go on for years. And the side effects from that pill makes them get on another one, and the side effects from that one, then they're on another one. Next thing you know, they're on like 6 different medications.
Yeah, that's the thing about all these medications and all these other drugs is really like, when you stop taking them, your body is physically dependent on it, and you need to take them again to feel better. And even though they're making you feel worse, you feel better in the short term by taking them. That's not the case with something like psilocybin. Yeah. You don't have any physical withdrawal component, and that's partially why they're not addictive, as Tyler was mentioning. And the other thing is, they're not addictive because people don't want to have like emotional exhausting journeys every day, right? Like,
imagine tripping constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a form of like psychological torture. You shouldn't do too many psychedelics all in a short period of time. Like, but you don't want to. I don't know anybody that wants to.
I know a few people, I've got to be honest.
I've definitely met somebody that does too many psychedelics just because I don't know why, and it gets you really weird. It really does. You shouldn't do it all the time. You need to be in tune with actual reality. It's good to go outside of reality, periodically, to look at things a different way, to change your perspectives, but then like, let's go back to reality and let's live in the real world for a substantial period of time before doing that again.
Yeah, I think the ceremonial aspect is quite important to, like you're saying, respecting it as not just as something to just take and get fucked up with, but like the setting, making sure, I'm not saying everybody has to have some ancient ritual, but when they're doing it, but still having that respect for this powerful thing. And it's not just, I'm not just here to, get smashed and go crazy. I'm here as a journey, as an experience to learn something and grow from it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I think people get this, like, oh, I had a bad trip on mushrooms once and never did them again type of thing. That's a common story, and that's fine, but that's probably somebody just like, nobody's bringing scales to parties or rock concerts or music festivals. So somebody probably just like, some people will take like a little mushroom and that's, but other people are like, take a handful. They don't know how much it is. So all of a sudden they're on a heroic dose amount, like 5+ grams, and they are not well supported for what can come up. And so they go and cower in the corner and cry while everybody's enjoying the music festival. And that's a bad time because they're fighting it the whole time. They don't want to do that. They didn't take it for that reason. But if you take that amount, it can be
overwhelming.
And if you take that amount and you go in with intentions, and that it would be probably weird if you don't cry, because feelings and cathartic feelings and stress relief come up more often than not, almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Then so long as you know what you're getting yourself into, the right setting and dose, then I think it's fine.
It's a tool in the tool belt. Like we Tyler and I went to a group session of psilocybin with ritual and maybe 20 people there, and I think maybe 19 people said it was one of the more profound and meaningful and important things they'd ever done. And one person was like, I don't know, I didn't really like it. So it's like, that's a really good ratio. And not everyone's, it's not going to be for everyone, but it's going to be for a lot of people.
Was this, you guys went there to partake, or is it filming?
To partake, yeah.
Cool.
We partook.
Yeah, we were so unbelievably stressed out editing the film and going through the process after, and just really long hours and no self-care, long, like 7 days a week, 12+ hours a day, no activities, like kind of missing out on like friend group stuff more often than we should. So yeah, it was just like a really stressful time. And then one of the people in the community invited us, and we're kind of like, oh, like we don't have time, but it's like we knew we probably should, and also like that would be my first time in sort of like the group, doing them in like a big group, and I kind of wanted to see what that was like.
Were you worried?
What's that?
Were you worried?
No, not worried. I knew what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Although like don't have expectations, but like I just kind of knew, like for myself, that it was going to be a very like cathartic experience and something that I needed just to like reset. And it's like a huge stress relief.
I'm always a little apprehensive before I do psychedelics. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's
a big commitment, right?
It's a lot. Yeah. It's like a full day of emotions and stuff. Right. So,
but yeah, the group thing was, it was all good. It was interesting. You make kind of like nice connections with people that you otherwise wouldn't really talk to on a day-to-day passing by. Cool. And everybody's there for a variety of different reasons. And, and then, obviously like whatever they got out of it is what they needed that day. I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How were your families about you making this whole documentary? Were they supportive of it? Did they think you were crazy? And
my parents are incredibly supportive.
Awesome.
We did have a salt spray. We did have a screening in my hometown, and my grandma came, and I was just a little bit awkward. But she says, "Oh, I've never seen a movie at all like this, but it was really good."
Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she's got some sort of history, but I don't think she's ever tried it, from what she says. So it seemed like it was an eye opener from her that I think she expected.
Was she before the swinging 60s, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So,
Okay.
well, my parents definitely took psychedelics.
Yeah.
My grandma, not so much.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my family's also supportive, and my mom has like, you know, she's got her story from the '60s, like, you know, with LSD and stuff like that. I kind of I want her to do a higher dose of mushrooms, like maybe with me and
Nice.
my siblings or something. I thought that could be like a very interesting and nice experience. Yeah, but she's kind of like doesn't really want to, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. Do you think have you guys got plans to do more documentaries after this, or was this enough for you? Because I mean, like, obviously you enjoyed it, and it must be amazingly fulfilling. But 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 years must like take it out of you. So
Well, this was such a, you know, this was such a grassroots thing that like Tyler and I, like put our own finances into this. We didn't have backing. Like it wasn't until later on down the track that we were able to, raise money from people that were, generously supporting us, and, get proper distribution and get things like articles from major publications like writing about us and stuff. So I would hope that, we can maybe do another film that doesn't begin so humbly, and maybe we have more support and backing from the beginning. And that sounds like a good idea to me.
Well, I guess it's been a learning curve, right? So now you kind of know how to do it properly.
Well, we got kind of like trapped immediately in the filming process, because we had the means to go and like film Adrienne once, right? And I remember very specifically saying to Nick that we'll probably only film once or twice, and then we'll like move back to a different topic with respect to documentaries. And then there'd be the whole other thing is like, oh man, like how can Adrienne get the help she needs, because she's been trapped in a failed medical system for so long.
Yeah.
Nothing has been working, and she had tried everything else. But what had happened was it actually worked, right? The first time she took mushrooms, she had a profound change in perspective, and wasn't feeling suicidal and depressed. There's still other issues that, as you would see in the film, she had to overcome, but just lost my train of thought here a little bit. But what was I trying to say?
About how we're saying about doing a different film, and how you kind of learned.
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, you were saying that we weren't able to look for funding that we would normally have gone through the Canadian government.
That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah. So typically you'd put together, you'd film that much, like an interview and the thing, and then you put together like a little demo, and then you pitch that to some networks or broadcasters, and then you'd get a broadcast license, then you'd apply for grants and funding, and like that all takes many months. The problem with this particular story was that Adrienne didn't have many months, right? She's using fentanyl-laced street drugs every day that she could overdose on, and she's really trapped in this broken system. So yeah, Nick and I started out humbly and independently, just like totally self-funded for several months, until we were lucky enough to get into a position where we could cut a nice trailer and put something out in the world, and we got a lot of support, and that allowed us to then pay for a whole bunch of other things that go along with the territory, and including like the editing process as well. Like we quit our day jobs, so we kind of had day jobs, and then we quit as this film consumed our lives, and we're doing like 2-3 day jobs all on this film at the same time. So if we do another one in the future, it would be great, but we need to do one where we don't like get trapped and like go down that path again. We need to do one where we can plan it out properly, and like get the funding and a bigger team as well in place, so that like we can obviously we'll work hard as we do, but we'll have a better balance, and there'll be a bigger team to
Mm-hmm.
like take on some of the other jobs, because we really did a lot. And you know, I mean, I don't know. In hindsight, I guess now that we've come through it all, like, I don't know, I wouldn't have it any other way. But like
Cool.
the next one, it's just like, oh, I don't know if I have another one of those in me, but we
Mhm.
could do it better.
Well, I'm guessing you've probably built up enough contacts, and you've had enough, well, it's got enough exposure now that you could get it would be a lot easier for you to get the grants and get the funding and get everything that you need, rather than having to do it from the scratch. Just
Yeah.
essentially off the back of this film.
Yeah, I feel like we'd have a strong chance at that. I mean, obviously, you got to still come with a good idea and, you know, nice demo, if you can cut that, as opposed to just like a pitch, like a one sheet or something. But yeah, for sure.
And have you got plans to get it on any like streaming channels or anything like that at the moment?
We sure do. It is being like closed captioned and subtitled into a couple different languages right now, and hopefully there'll be more to come.
Cool.
And it is available to rent or purchase on Vimeo, and that's directly on our website, linked on our website at dosedmovie.com. But hopefully in the next, I honestly, everything with COVID is so backed up, so I don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
But we hope that there will be more platforms in the near future, from iTunes and Google Play, and then you know, maybe even down the road, you know, like somewhere
Netflix or something.
Yeah. But that could take many months. So for now, for people who are interested, they can rent and watch it on Vimeo on demand.
Cool. Did the whole I'm guessing the whole COVID situation has affected you guys, because you were pretty much having it touring different cinemas? I mean,
let me tell you, my friend, we had, you know, hundreds of screenings that were sold out around the world. It was it is incredible the amount of support that we received from people, because there's so many people that need solutions for their mental illness or their addiction, and there's so many people that know that this is something that works. So really, it was a film that spoke to, I think, the people that are you know, in this movement and curious about this movement. And the strength of all of this sort of grassroots screenings that we set up ourselves actually got us traditional theatrical distribution. We were all scheduled to start that in New York on March 20th with the distributor, and then on March 15th, all the theaters, the theaters closed.
Shit.
And so, you know, and then, you know, a few days after that, I got COVID, I think. And so I was like sitting at home, theatrical tour canceled, got COVID. I'm just like, what is going on with life right now, right? But we just pivoted and we put it online, because, you know, now more than ever, people need a glimmer of hope about what might be a way for them to deal with the probably increased levels of anxiety and depression now that, and drug addiction and domestic violence and all the things that are going on that people are struggling with when they're stuck in quarantine.
Yes, I think we're going to have a much higher damage and death toll from indirect things than people ever expected. I mean, way more than like the virus itself could cause damage. I think there's going to be long-term effects and damage on people. Yeah, alcoholism is increased massively from what I've read, and the domestic violence. Yeah, so something like your film definitely gives a glimmer of hope, which is great.
So,
are you going to get it? Will you plan on doing theaters again, cinemas, when this does lift? Do you have redistribution again?
There's already a couple theaters that have been talking about you know, putting it back in, and there's a local one that wants to do that, you know, and we'll go there and do a Q&A. Obviously, we can't travel, but in some other cities, I think that, like, the long and short of it is we don't really know, and we don't know how it'll look because let's say the theater is 400 seats, well, they might only allow 50 people to go in, or maybe 100, maybe 200, I don't know. And then who is ready to go and sit down, for an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever with people? Like, how far away are they, and how afraid are they, how worried are they? But obviously, I guess it just depends on like each city and each country, and like which ones are handling the virus better than others. We definitely hope that things do return to a more normal, where people can go enjoy group activities, because humans are social creatures. Isolation and disconnection leads to mental health problems.
For sure.
It was already a problem, and now everybody's being forced to not socialize. There's probably a lot of people struggling with issues. We're definitely going to be coming back to like some theaters. We just don't know like exactly how it would look. We were going to screen in South Africa
Nice.
before all of this. I think it would be cool, because we as of yet we didn't have a screening in that continent, South Africa, the country, but like anywhere
in Africa at all.
So it'd be cool to have one there, and we've had some in Europe and the UK and Australia, not yet in New Zealand, but that was supposed to happen. And there was supposed to be a ton in the United States, based on this, after this New York City premiere. Hopefully some of the theaters want to bring us back, and maybe instead of for a week, maybe it'll be for a one-off. It's kind of interesting, because like people can go and rent it online and watch it. But there's also an interesting element with our film, is like when you go watch it in the theater, you get like a real sense of community, and there's a lot of people that are kind of curious and experienced with psychedelics and how they can help people, themselves, their friends, their family. And in almost every city that we've been to so far, there's been a talk, even if we can't be there personally, because we're not able to travel everywhere. Even pre-COVID, we can't travel just because it's like the time and cost, right?
Yeah.
But we have people that will align with, and they'll do a Q&A afterwards, and they'll talk with the audience about just psychedelics in general, and how like what Adrienne went through can apply to certain situations, and all the other things to do with legalization and decriminalization and stuff like that. So
yeah, it was amazing, the Amsterdam one. I mean, the reaction, I can't remember a film that I've been to where at the end everybody stands up and claps, which happened.
Awesome.
To actually
Good to
have
hear.
everybody clapping and emotional, and then the Q&A was brilliant. There was a guy actually, one of the people, Alexi Hoopley, kind of appropriate to this conversation. He spoke, and he is running Support Don't Punish, which is a campaign, and he works with LEAP, which is Law Enforcement Action Partnership. So he's there really at the forefront of policy change, and to have him stood up there, and a few other really, really interesting people involved, not just involved in psychedelics, but involved in the research of psychedelics, the law, and the more traditional things of psychedelics. It was great to have that after the film, so people could ask questions. It was a really good experience.
Good to hear. Yeah, there's a clap, standing ovation, or just regular ovation after I think almost every single screening. Amazing. Which really speaks to how people need solutions and answers, and they're excited that information is being like out in sort of a more mainstream way.
Yeah. Well, you guys have done an absolute fantastic job with it, so you should be super, super proud. Is there anything you want to mention or anything before you? We've passed an hour. I know we said we do about an hour, and so it's already gone over. Awesome time. I really enjoy talking to you. So, but if there's anything you want to, any other projects you want to plug, or anything a message you want to put out there, feel free. Let me know.
Just head to dosedmovie.com, where you can rent the film and sign up for our mailing list, where you'll hear about this other stuff that we're talking about, which as in terms of helping to bring psychedelics to medical clinics, in the near future when things become legal. So yeah, just
Cool.
That's it from me, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say that if anybody out there is watching this and, you know, they're personally struggling or they know somebody who's struggling, people always ask us, like, where can I access these services? And the unfortunate thing is that it is difficult because it's illegal. So, you know, most cities have psychedelic societies or decriminalize nature initiatives and that type of thing. And, you know, these are groups that can be found on like Meetup or social media, Facebook, that type of thing. So like just get involved with one of those places. You know, it'll feel good to be a part of something and, you know, to help out. And then also you're going to meet people that could probably better answer those questions from you know, like a local perspective. And then, you know, you'll make your new friends, and then, you know, that will lead to discussions that could potentially, you know, lead you down the path that you're looking for. And I believe that there are also, it's more limited. It really depends on where you live, but, you know, you can get microdoses generally. And and then there's like there's the retreats as well, right? So like when we're allowed to travel again, and if you have the means, I believe there's retreats in Jamaica, the Netherlands, and then different substances. Like, you know, there's mushrooms, but there's also ayahuasca, and there's ibogaine, and, you know, in Mexico and South America, and so, you know, Portugal as well. They actually, I believe did they legalize or
Decriminalized all drugs.
Yeah, and so there's, you know, there are retreats there. So for people that are really serious, like you can look all of these places up online, and then just like reach out to a few, figure out which one makes the most sense, and then also just talk to your political leaders. You know, it's like, it's illegal and it's hard to get access, but, you know, if people started sending emails to the right, you know, political person, member of parliament, whatever it may be in your country or city, then, you know, they'll start to take notice. And then when it's time to do like a push towards decriminalization, they're like, oh wow, there's people that are very passionate and sort of supportive of this, and then maybe they'll be more inclined to make that happen. So yeah.
And a lot of these resources that Tyler was talking about with respect to accessing psychedelics, microdosing or otherwise, as well as different retreats and stuff, you can find out a lot about that on our website as well, dosemovie.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, guys. It's been fantastic. And
yeah, it's been great.
And yeah, I wish you the best of luck for everything and continuing on your amazing journey with this film. It really, really is a wonderful film. So make sure anyone watching, please do, if you haven't seen it, check it out. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Thanks so much for your support. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we are Shifty Perspective. This was episode 11, and that was Nick and Tyler from DOSED. So please make sure you check out their film, DOSED Movie. If you are interested, you can check out the Support Don't Punish campaign. And if you also would like to check out more information, please feel free to check out shiftyperspective.com, where we will put links up to all of the sources that we've discussed in this film today. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week, similar time. Thank you.